Hi everyone, welcome to the another live session for Python, and today we'll be starting with a very important thing called lists in Python. So we did loops yesterday. So Deepak is with us as usual. So hi Deepak, how are you?
Hi, G, I'm fine.
So are you excited to start with a new topic named lists?
Yes.
List is something which will be very helpful for you to manage multiple values. So if I have to consider like a number of values together, so lists are really helpful in that. As the name says, list means we're going to have a number of values in it. So now in Python, list is technically called a data structure. So data structure basically means that a way of managing the data. So we call it a list which has certain set of values. Those values can be heterogeneous. Heterogeneous means your values could be integer, float, it could be a string, it could be of any type. So it is a mixture of different data types that is said to be a list. For example, I want to have a list of temperature for the past 1 week. So if I want to have temperature, so I give it a name as temperature, whatever name you wanted you could give it. So if I'm writing like 34, 35, then 38, 36, 35, 34, and 35. So this is, let's say, the temperature for past 1 week, right? The maximum temperature for past 1 week. So we have taken that. So the basic syntax is you write the name of the list, we put an equal to sign, and in the square bracket you put the values which we have to take. So the values have to be given separated by commas within the square brackets. So these form a list. I can have as many values in the list I want. A list can also be empty or it can have n number of values in it. There is no restriction on the number of values. If you want to print the list, it's very simple. You can just write print and write the name of the list and it will print the whole list. If you want to attach a message before or with this, you can always have another print where I can say temperature for past 1 week is, and then I show this. Now I want to execute this file, so I go to run, and from the run menu we run our list.py. So in the output window we see this. So temperature for past 1 week is, and your list is printed, right? Like last time I gave you a brief that we can perform all the operations like highest, lowest in the list easily without having a loop. So we can have it like if I want to print the highest temperature in the past 1 week, so maximum temperature was, and I can have the function max. So this function max helps me to get the maximum temperature. So max is a predefined function which gives you the maximum value out of the list. Similar way, if you want to show the lowest, so you can write minimum temperature was, and I can use the function min. And if you want to show the average temperature, you can do that as well. So we can write average temperature was, and we write so if I'm writing here average temperature, can you see one thing? It is showing a red line below average. That means that it's not, there's wrong syntax, means this function is not defined. So it basically means the function is not defined. Another thing I can think is maybe the name of the function is avg, but it's still not working. That means we don't have any such function. So if I don't have any such function called average, how can I calculate it?
Sum of all the items.
Exactly. So we'll have sum of all the items divided by the number of elements. And for getting the number of elements, we have a function called len. You can write length as well, complete, or just write length. So sum divided by length of the list will give me the average temperature. So if I execute this, I'm going to get temperature for past 1 week, maximum, minimum, and the average temperature, right? So that is basically we can take a list. But now the thing comes is, like, I have taken this list which is having these 7 temperatures, but I took the list of my own. I gave those 7 values of my own. I don't want that I should have a fixed set of values. I should ask the user, and I should pick up the values from the user input and put them in the list. So if you want something like that, you are going to have an empty list over here. How do we define an empty list? This way. So you just leave empty square brackets. That means it's an initially empty list. So the list is initially empty. Now what we have to do is we have to put the temperatures in it. And I know I have to take temperature for a week. That means I have to take 7 temperatures, right? So if we have to take 7 values for temperature, you can have a loop which should work for 7 times. So I have a loop which works for 7 times. Inside that, you ask for the temperature. So input, enter a temperature, or if you want to input like enter temperature for day 1, day 2, you can do that way as well. That's up to you. But if I'm just getting it like this, enter a temperature. Now this value which we have read, it needs to be added to the list. So once a list is there, we can add values to a list, and for that we have 2 different functions. One is append and one is insert. So to add at the end, you have a function named append. So you write append and you write the value which you need to add at the end. So I say that I have to add the value in temp into the list named temperature. So temperature dot append temp means whatever is entered by the user which is stored in temp, that will be added into the list at the end of the list. So append has come from add at end. So adding at end means append. So whatever we do, it's added at the end. So it's created. But if you want to insert at any specific position, then there is another method called insert. In insert, you have to pass 2 values. You have to pass a value like the place where you have to insert, comma, the value you have to insert. But right now we are inserting at the end, so that's why it's append. So when you run the program, a message comes like enter a temperature. I enter temperature, and like this, I keep entering the values. So once your 7 values are entered, it is showing us the temperature for past 1 week is. It is showing this thing and it is showing an error. Let's see what that error is. It is showing the max temperature, it is showing the minimum temperature, but in case of some temperature, yeah. Now why this error is coming? Because in input I haven't put int or float. So it has taken the list as text, as strings. So in strings it is able to find max and min because digits are also characters. So that's why it is able to find the max and min, but it can't do the sum of your string values. That's why we are getting an error over there. So to rectify this error, what you need to do is you just need to convert it to int. If you want that the temperature could be in points, so you should take it as a float. So either way, integer or float, but it has to be converted to a numeric value, so that now when you enter the values, we get the list of all the temperatures in the last week. We get the maximum temperature, we get the minimum temperature, and we get the average temperature. Is it clear? Right? So that is one thing you must know about lists, that we have some predefined set of functions which can be used we have the way, like how do we input from the list, right? Now is processing the list. If you have to search something in the list, or if you have to process each element of the list one by one for any particular reason, so how can we do that? So processing the list is like, we can use loops with it if you want to fetch one element at a time from the list, and using that loop is again have variations. So if I have to use loop with lists, so see, how do we use loop with lists? Let's say my list is numbers, and I have taken certain numbers in this. So I have these numbers, and I want that I should print square of all these numbers. Very simple thing. I have to print square of all these numbers. So there are two ways to refer to each of the elements. Like, every element in the list has a position. First element is said to be at position 0. The next element is at position 1, then 2, then 3, and so on. Now I can have a loop here for I in range. Range what? Len of numbers. So what I do is, yeah, that would be the counter. So len numbers will find the length. So here we have 6 numbers. That means the length of the list is 6. So this line eventually becomes for I in range 6. That means your loop will work for 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And you want to print square. So I can write here like square of numbers I is numbers I raised to the power 2. Now numbers square bracket I means when I is 0, number square bracket 0 is going to be 3. When I becomes 1, number square bracket 1 is going to be 2. When I becomes 2, number square bracket 2 is going to be 4. So like this. Now if you run this, it will run the previous program. We don't want to run that. We want to run this one. So I go to run and select loop with lists. So you can see the output over here. So square of 3, square of 2, 4, 6, 5 and 9, right? I can do the same thing by changing this loop to something else. That would be rather easier than this, and that is called for in loop. Now whenever you have lists, you have a special loop for them, and that loop is written like this. Like I can write for num in numbers. See what I've written? For num in numbers, right? Now this loop will fetch one value from the list into the variable num, and it will keep doing so till all the elements in the list gets over. So I just write for num in numbers, print square of num is num raised to the power 2. So for num in numbers means that num will automatically pick up 3, then it will pick up 2, 4, 6, 5, 9. When the list is over, the loop will stop. So this is the loop which we generally use for lists, so that the loop should work for each present value in the list. Output is the same, there is no difference. Are you clear with basics? So that's how we can work on individual element in the list, either by this loop or by this loop. This in helps you to search for a value also. For example, if I want to search for a value, I ask a number here. Let's say I ask temp is equal to int input, and I say enter a number to be searched, and I take it in temp. I just need to write here if temp in numbers. So if temp in numbers, that means if temp is found in numbers, I can print found. Else, if It's not there, obviously. If it is in numbers, it will give you true. But if it doesn't return you true, that means the number is not there in the list. So for searching, we just write if temp in numbers. If you would have working in C, C++ or Java, you have to write a whole long code to search for a value to check if it's there in the list or not. So if I press 7, it says not found because 7 is not there in the list. But if you say 6, it is there, so it says found. Yeah.
Sleep mistake. Temp is go to what is so temp is
Just a variable,
just
any variable in which you are reading a value, and then you're checking if that value is there in the list
temp
or
in
not.
numbers. Okay. Found temp in numbers. Okay.
So with the help of in operator, we can use a loop as well as we can use this in if to check the values. Right? Okay, so we have many other functions with list. We have different way of slicing the list, means you don't want to have the whole set of lists, so you want to fetch just the half, a second half, a number of things like that. So we have that. If you're clear with this, we can move on to that part. So slicing the list is very easy and simple thing. It depends like where do you want to use it. It is all dependent on your need. So I'll show you how can we slice the list. So if I have a list, let's say A, and I have certain values in it. Let's say these are the values I'm having. So these are 9 values. Okay. Now, what if I print A4? What will be printed?
Position 4,
What would be that number?
8.
8. So it is printing 8, that is A4. Now see, what if I write A4 colon? So when I write A4 colon, that means print all the elements from position 4. So you are going to get 8, 9, 12, 1, 15. Okay. If I put this colon before 4,
So it will take the previous.
it will take before 4. That means 4, 5, 3, 2, but it will not take the 4th position. So 8 will not be a part of the result. Only the elements which are before 8. So it will give you all the elements which are before position 4. That is up to position 3. So that's how colon matters if you give before or after the number. But if you want a specific range, like I want all the elements to be get printed from 3 to 8. So I can write 3 colon 8. If I write 3 colon 8, that means start from index 3. So 0, 1, 2, 3. 3 is your this index where we have 2. So it will pick 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And last index is 8. So it will not pick 8. That means you will get 2, 8, 9, 12, 1. Okay. So we give the starting position. We give the ending position after the colon. But it fetches only one before the ending position. So last position which you mentioned, the ending position, that is never fetched. Is it right? We have some special way of getting the numbers from the list as well. Like I write 1 double colon 2 from the list. So if I write 1 double colon 2, what do we mean by a double colon? This says that start fetching the elements from index 1 and fetch them at a gap of 2. So it will fetch from position 1, then it will fetch from position 3, then will fetch from position 5. So if you run this, I'll be getting 5, 2, 9 and 1. If you want to fetch at the gap of 3, you can write 3. So we'll be getting 5, 8 and 1. Okay. So we can tell like at what gap you want to fetch. So for that, double colon is required. So you need to tell the starting position, double colon, the interval. Like for after how much interval you need the numbers to be fetched. And another thing about this slicing and indexing is that you can also give negative index. I can write a minus 2 as well. And can you guess what would it do? It will work from the back end side. So it will work from the back end side. So from the back end side, the position doesn't start from 0. So if it's minus 2, that means this last number is at minus 1 and this one is at minus 2. Okay, and so on, we can go up to the negative thing. So that is how your slicing and indexing can be done with lists. You clear with this? So that is how we do it. Other than that, if you write list dot, you can see so many functions out here. So all these functions can be used with list. Like append is used to add one element to the list. Remove helps you to remove an element from the list. Index is like you pass a value and it will tell you at which position that value is there in the list. Count tells you how many times that value comes in the list. Sort will simply sort your data. Extend is to combine two lists. I have two lists and I want one list attached after another list. For that we use extend. Clear is to clear the whole list. So all the elements from the list will be deleted. Copy is if you want to copy one list into another list. You want two similar lists, so you can copy one list into another list. Then we have insert. Insert is to insert an element at a certain position. So this is not a method, this is a type. Then we have pop. Pop is to delete an element from the beginning of the list. Reverse is to reverse the elements of a list. So these are not the methods, these are all types. So you just need to know what is the purpose of the methods we have. So we have only these methods where you can see this M in front of them in this pink circle. So you just need to know about these, that how these methods are used. So you should be aware of all the methods. Like if I write here list dot reverse, but it returns a list, so you have to take it somewhere. So list dot reverse, list is my A, so I should write A dot reverse and I should take it in B. And you want to print the reverse list, so you can write here print reversed list is, and I print B. So if I go for this A dot reverse, or you could write reverse of A. So list dot reverse A. Why is it showing none?
We need to give square brackets.
No, reverse is a function. We have to write round bracket only for that. A, why is it taking A as none? Let me print A first. So I can print like original list is A, and I print it. So I'm getting the original list, and then
I think we should have B is equal to sorted because we have already used A.
yeah, we can do that. We can even override the variable, that's not an issue. For some reason it's taking it as none. That means it's not reversing the list. Takes no arguments, that was perfectly fine. Oops. So we have got the elements and it is not doing the reverse. If I just check for the index thing, A dot index, and I want to search the index of 9 and I want to print B. Index method is working, that 9 is at position 5. That's working, even count will also work. And what is the problem with reverse? sort. So maybe there is some problem in the syntax. I'll just check it and confirm you. But those are the functions which we can use to work on the list. Right now it's not able to create the list. That's why it's showing none. None means no value at all. So if Python doesn't have a value in a variable, it shows none for that. Right? If I just write here print reverse a, sorry, print a dot reverse, and I run this. No, it's not working in any format. Okay, so we'll check this later. But are you clear with the basic slicing and indexing? So you want to try something? You have to do one thing now. What you have to do is you have to write a small program where you have to input name and marks of 5 students. So you have to ask like, what's your name? What are your marks? What's your name? What are your marks? And like that. So once you get the name and marks of 5 students, you have to tell me who tops the class. That means who has got the highest marks. So if I enter like Rahul 56, Prateek 92, something like that. So at the end you have to say that Prateek scores the highest. So you have to show the name for the student who scores the highest. Got the question? Try it out. All these 3 programs are open here. So if you want to take help like how to input or how to process in a loop or how to do slicing, you can take help of this, right? Go ahead.
Okay, I'll try this.
Okay. So you need some time to go through the list first.
Yeah, I'll just have to go through the programs we've done.
And it seems you're not feeling well today.
Yeah, kind of.
Okay. So Deepak is not a bit well today, and so he would like to try this program later. That is to input name of 5 students and their marks, and tell which student has got the highest marks. So you all can try that question of your own and post the answer in the comments below. Otherwise, we have done today all these things. That is your basics of the list, that is how to input the values in a list. Then we did how to use loops with the list, and we did how to do slicing with the list. So you need to work on this, practice these things, and try reverse and sort on your machine and see how it's working. And we'll see you tomorrow with the solution of the question which I have given now, that is to find the student with the highest marks. So I'll see you tomorrow around 5:30 to 6, anywhere in between, and we'll work on it, and we'll do a lot more on other data structures like dictionaries. So we have done lists today, and tomorrow we'll be starting with dictionaries in Python, right? That's it for today. So by the time I upload more, you should be watching the videos and practicing the programs and enjoy programming.